Right, it's past midnight, and I think it's time for a very, very serious contemplation. Why am I speaking English? Well, this contemplation is going to be about the English language and its role in my life. And I thought, I thought it might be a good idea to do it in English. Now, I'm a 50-year-old woman from Estonia, and I can I can assure you that there are not too many women who are my age, or more or less my age, who can speak English. I know many women who are, my age, and most of them can speak very poor English or no English or whatsoever. So, why can I speak English? Well, I might sound arrogant and a bit evil, but recently I sort of regret that I can speak English. Well, not fully, but I do regret it somewhat. But let me start from the very, very beginning. Now, I was born in 1975. That was during the Soviet occupation of Estonia. And I lived in Tallinn, the capital of Estonia, and we stole the Finnish TV, the TV signal. It was too strong. Some people say it was too strong on purpose. There is even a conspiracy theory that it was too strong because of a secret project of the CIA. Well, I don't know anything about it. If there are any CIA agents watching this video by mistake, please tell me the truth. But anyway, we stole the Finnish TV, and that gave us access to the West. There are many, American TV series, films I used to watch on a regular basis. Miami Vice was my very favorite TV series. Also, I was a very avid reader, so I really liked to read books that were published in the 1920s and 1930s, that is during the Republic of Estonia, between the two world wars. So my outlook from a very early age, because I learned to read something when I was at the age of 3 or 4. I mean, I remember at the age of 4, at my kindergarten, the teachers, they went outside to smoke and left me with other children, and I read them books. So, and so for me that was a lot of information from a very early age. Also, I used to spend my summers in the so-called border zone. There were certain zones that were not accessible to the general public. You had to have family members there, or some history, and then you got special permits to enter. But that meant army checkpoints. So I really hated those checks. I really hated those Soviet soldiers. And I was also influenced very much, by the Finnish TV and the literature published between those two world wars. So when I was in my kindergarten, I had a very interesting chat with a mother of another child. So I had heard that there were some schools that were at those times called English biased schools. There were schools where you could study English very intensively, and also had subjects in English, certain subjects, not all of them. And I announced to that adult that I would study English. And the adult said, dear child, you are crazy. You're not. That is an insane thing to do, because you would be studying a language you can absolutely never ever use in real life. And that at that time, that was obviously true. And I tried to find a counter-argument. And my only counter-argument was that, I will not be able to speak that language. I will not be able to use it because it's totally useless. But I will be able to read some books. That was my only counter-argument. so in the late 70s, early 80s. I think maybe that conversation took place maybe in 1980, 1981, something like that. Anyway, but I also told my parents about my plan, and my parents, at first, they were not impressed because, well, I'm from a simple family, and those special schools, they were for people from good families. Maybe people say that there were no social classes in the Soviet Union. That is totally untrue. There were social classes, maybe not based so much on money, but they were based on certain, family ties. There were families where everybody went to university. Obviously, my family was not among those families. So for me to go to that school was very, very strange. But I insisted. I told my parents, please, 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 take me to those entrance examinations. And, well, they surrendered, and they took me to those examinations. That lasted for 3 days. And I could go to that school. Now, did I like that school? At first, I think I did. And there were obviously many subjects I liked, but, well, I would say that maybe the last years, or the last 5, 6, 7 years in that school were not the happiest. So, no, I would say that I did not like it before finishing the school. But thanks to that school, yes, I did learn to speak English. I remember in the late 1980s, when things were more relaxed, we started to have Western tourists, and I calmly chatted with an American woman, and she started to shiver, she was shocked, and then she, why can you speak English? That is so strange. Aren't you a citizen of the Soviet Union? And I said, well, yes, but yes, I can speak English. Now, nowadays things are obviously very different, and not in a nice way. I can give you a very clear example. I moved to Catalonia, to Spain, in 2004, where I lived for 12 years. So I spent most of my time speaking Catalan and Spanish. And I started to think that maybe, well, English, of course, was an important language. I mean, I traveled, and there were some jobs where I used it, but it was not like a big and important language for me anymore. And neither had it been in Estonia. Of course, again, it was useful to communicate with foreign tourists. It was useful to travel, but it was nothing else. But then things changed, and I can give you a very, very, very clear example. So in 2008, in 2008, I traveled to Italy, and I was in Florence and in Pisa. And during my entire trip, I spoke 0 words of English, 0. And do I speak Italian? Not really. I mean, I understand Italian really well, thanks to Catalan, and thanks to Spanish, and thanks to a few other Latin languages I have studied. But I could not, for example, I could not make this video in Italian. Now, I went to a guided tour in Italian recently, and I understood every word the guide said in Italian. And I can manage to order a coffee, maybe say simple things, but I have never studied Italian, I mean, at least not properly, and I could manage. But in 2008, the rules were very simple. I spoke Spanish, tried to use as many Italian words as possible, and the Italian spoke Italian to me, and we managed really well. And I remember having several long conversations with random Italians, and I mean, we had a wonderful time there, and it was never assumed that I should use English. Now, I recently went to Italy again, and it was bad. It was bad because many people came to me and started speaking English, and that really bothered me. That really bothered me because, well, why are you speaking to me in English? Why do you think I can even speak English? Because most women my age from my country are not that good at English, you know. But I had also been to Argentina, which was a very lovely country because English is totally useless there. I mean, you don't hear it, nobody speaks it, well, at least not in the service sector, and you either speak Spanish or you die, basically, and that is something I really liked in Argentina. And then when I was in Italy, I got this crazy idea that I would play Argentinian because many people in Argentina thought I was Argentinian. So I said, well, I couldn't maybe play Spanish because I don't look like a Spaniard. But, well, Argentinians come from all kinds of backgrounds. There are also Argentinians whose ancestors are from Northern Europe. And I could maybe, pull it off. So I played Argentinian, and a miracle happened. The Italians started to speak to me in Italian. And this experience left me a bit wounded because the situation is very similar in my native Estonia. When we restored our independence at the beginning of the 1990s, it was very clear that our only official language would be Estonian. Now, there's also a thing called common sense. Like, for example, if a tourist comes here for 2 or 3 days, it is impossible to assume that, he would be able to speak fluent Estonian because nobody is able to study a language that quickly. And that is okay. I'm very, very comfortable with the fact that tourists can't speak Estonian, and I always try to help them, either in English or any other bigger language I can speak. I'm talking about people who live here. So the rules are very clear. The rules say they should speak Estonian, but very few of them do. And that is something very, very painful. So, for example, you can even meet Estonian citizens, people who have had to pass exams, also a language exam, and who come and, well, you can't have a conversation with them in Estonian, a proper conversation at least. It's even worse. Some of them hate Estonian. You can really see that, they don't like the existence of Estonian or a language. And there are many people from the so-called West who behave exactly like Soviet colonists. They have the same mentality. For example, there is a very clear rule, it's a law actually, that says that foreign university professors, academic staff, they have to speak Estonian after their first 5 years here. That's a law. Now, when you think, these people, they have PhD degrees. They are considerably more intelligent than people, normal people, than people, from other backgrounds. And yet this law is ignored. And I don't understand why. Because when you think about, the process of learning a language, you first go to a country, and after 1 year, you should be able to hold a simple conversation, order your coffee, do your shopping, very simple things. And after 5 years, you should be like totally fluent. Maybe make a small mistake here and there, yes, okay. But you should be like totally fluent, you should be able to read books, read newspapers, watch films, do everything. And that is not the case in Estonia. It's even worse. I am forced into situations where I'm forced to speak English to these people. And that has left me in a bad state. Are there any solutions? Well, I feel my government does not want to have those solutions. Do I have any solutions myself? Yes. I often pretend I cannot speak English. I just say, well, me, no English. Sorry. I can't speak the language. I'm sorry. I don't understand you. And that is, of course, a very bitter pill to swallow, because I used to love English. It was my favorite subject at school. I used to love reading books in English and everything. So a few years ago, I started to feel anger and hatred. I started to feel that I hate English. And this was a feeling that was creeping closer and closer and closer. And it was definitely a feeling I did not want to have. So what were my solutions? Did I have any solutions? Well, yes and no. No, because you cannot really control your feelings. Your feelings are not very rational. They come and go. But yes, because I started to think of all the good things. And I signed up for several subjects at the University of Tartu that were in English, about English literature, English mostly English literature. And did those subjects help? I would say yes, somewhat yes. I lost the hatred. Partially lost the hatred, and I started to enjoy the language, its beauty, because English is a language with very chaotic beauty. When you talk to many older Estonians, they would say that German is a much easier language than English, and you say what? Because young people would not understand that maybe, but German is easier because it has rules. And English, after a certain point, it becomes like a pile of information, like a pile of chaotic information. But in that chaos, there is a lot of beauty. And that beauty is very visible in English literature. So I lost definitely that part of that hatred. But the part that, of the streets is still there, because there are obviously people who would expect me to be kind and tolerant and speak to them in English. And they say, well, you live here. We're not going to speak in English. And I have had many situations where, even people who can speak fluent Estonian, because it's easier for them to speak in English, they come to me and start to speak in English. And I know they speak fluent Estonian, so I speak back to them in Estonian. They speak to me in English. I speak in Estonian. They speak in English. I speak in Estonian. And finally, they surrender. And that is very, very exhausting. That's like a psychological warfare. And I'm very angry at my government that I'm forced to do these things. But there are other things I'm forced to do. For example, there is a situation when, there is obviously a person who must speak Estonian, but who does not speak Estonian. And I'm forced, I'm not alone with the person. There is a bigger group of people. I'm like a part of a system. And in that system, I'm expected not to make a scandal. And that is really, really hurtful. It's also hurtful to speak Estonian to people who were born here, have lived here for decades, and who speak abysmal Estonian. And I'm like, okay, if that person had lived here for 2 years, 3 years, okay, that would be okay, that would be acceptable, but not 3 decades, 4 decades. Or whatever, Do I have any pleasant stories? Well, yes. I mean, I remember that I've had conversations with very exotic people. Well, exotic, from my perspective, in Estonian. I especially enjoyed a young Chinese man who is extremely intelligent, and I sometimes sometimes meet him, and I remember our last conversation, and we had it full in Estonian, and I was like, okay, this is a Chinese man. He has lived here 1 year, 2 years, and we are having a fluent conversation in Estonian, and of course these things make me really, really happy. But generally, yes, the position of the language is bad. And I feel bad, because there's a part of me that loves English very, very much, and part of me that hates it. And I think my situation might be similar to a woman who got married to a very nice man, and they were very happy together for a long time. And now the husband is an alcoholic who sometimes beats her, and the woman is very confused. What is going on? Is the man going to therapy? Is he, has he decided to become better? Or is this horror going to go on and on and on? So yeah, that is my contemplation. Now, English is obviously a useful language. I don't deny it. I mean, I use it myself when I travel to certain countries. I mean, I was in Hong Kong, and Cantonese is, of course, a very interesting language, and I picked up certain words when I was there, and if I lived there, I would make a very genuine effort to study it. But obviously, I couldn't manage fully in Cantonese, or it's a very difficult language. It's like the Chinese on steroids. So obviously, I used English, and but it is true that I prefer to travel to the countries where I would not have to use English. So that's the reason I really loved Argentina. That English is like, I don't know, it's like totally useless there. It's like, I don't know, Italian in Estonia, or well, there are, of course there are Estonians who can speak Italian, but most of us can't. So I really enjoyed this Argentina because there is no English. And I miss the Italy of 2008, because the Italy of 2008 had no English, but the Italy of 2025 is very different. So I think what is the point of this contemplation? The point is very, very simple. I feel that English, an important language, a very interesting language, a very beautiful language, has become an aggressive language. It has stepped out of the line. It had its correct place. It is now somewhere else. It has become a bit like cancer. And my own attempts to fight against it, I basically pretend I cannot speak it. I remember one incident very clearly. There was a very, very aggressive foreigner who started to speak to me in English. I obviously pretended I could not speak it because the foreigner was aggressive. And then the foreigner starts to speak to me very slowly, like one word, and then a long pause, and another word, and a long pause, and another word, just like to an idiot. And I just look at her and I say, well, no, I don't understand. I don't understand anything. And then I remember there was an Estonian man, a young Estonian man, who was near us, listening to this weird exchange of ideas, and he started to laugh at me. For me, he started to laugh at me because in his world, someone who can't speak English is an idiot. And I'm like, okay, no. We are in Estonia. It is like, I feel the agreement was at the beginning of the 1990s that we would be open to other cultures, which is great. And we would be open to studying a lot of different foreign languages, which is also great if you want to do that. You don't have to do it in your own country, but if you want to do it, it's fantastic. The agreement was not to adopt English as our language. English is not my language. It is a foreign language I like very much. Well, I used to like very much, but it's not our language. And this has been changed against my will. And this is, I think, a crime against my country, and not only against my country, it's also a crime against Italy, for example. I mean, what the hell? You go to Italy to enjoy Italy, not to enjoy England or the United States, right? Okay, well, that was my depressing contemplation in English. Thank you for listening to me.